Good morning, all of you. Thank you for joining the meet and welcome to today's session. Joining us today is a beloved alumni of our college, Mr. Parameswaran B, who is now working as the lead data scientist in Envestnet Trivandrum. A very warm welcome to you, sir.
Thank you, Anaga. Am I audible to everybody?
Yes, sir.
All right. I'll just share my screen and we can get started with the session. Yeah, is the screen visible to everybody? Okay, good morning to one and all. My name is Parameswaran. Today, as you might have read in posters as well, we're going to talk about effective communication. What is the importance of effective communication in you as a graduate and also going ahead in life? And I'll also tell you a few tips and tricks that you can use to communicate effectively going ahead. Before we start the session, let me quickly give you an introduction about myself. I won't take much time here. My name is Parameswaran. I studied BTech in Government Engineering College Barton Hill in 2011-2015 batch. Did my mechanical engineering there. And I'm a data scientist now in Envestnet in Trivandrum itself. And I'm running a YouTube channel which has around 7,000 subscribers. So before we roll into the session, I want to let you know a couple of things. First thing is that I just don't want the session to be boring. And what I mean by that is I just don't want to keep talking to you and receive no response. So please participate in the session. Let it be interactive. I'll ask you questions. I'll give you probably activities throughout the session. And that's the way to learn, I believe, rather than like hearing something for 60 minutes and going with nothing. So use the chat window. I think there are a couple of messages that are already received in the chat window. If you're on a desktop, it's on the right top of the window, the screen that you see. Or if you're using a mobile phone, there is a 3-dot menu button there. You can tap that and see the in-call messages. And through that, you can respond to my questions, or you can even unmute yourself and talk to me if there are questions. And if there are any non-Mallus here who don't understand Malayalam, you can tell me, because in between I might use a couple of Malayalam words here and there for keeping the session a bit more lively. So yeah, if there are such people within the next couple of minutes, if you, there are people who don't understand Malayalam, so I'll try to stick with English itself. That's good. Okay, let's move into the session. As far as you are concerned, what is communication? Can somebody take a lead and tell me what communication is? Because we gotta define communication before going ahead and saying or knowing more about communication, right? What is communication? I'll give you 15 seconds. If you can write in the chat box, or if somebody can unmute and tell me, that'll be brilliant. Anybody who wants to take the lead? All right, sharing information, that's good. Anything more? Okay, so to put it in simple terms, communication is nothing but spreading of information, like Sandra has said, or ideas. You have something in your mind, you want to put that across to another person. Let it be one person, you're having a casual conversation with your friend, with your neighbor, with your brother, anybody, or it's like how I'm doing right now. I'm talking to around 70, 80 people right now. So it's to one person or more than one people. But anyway, at the end of the day, you're trying to put information across to the other person, right? And what constitute of communication is listening. So when I told that I'm going to talk about communication to my friends, they were asking, okay, you're going to talk about how to speak well, right? No, that's not the case. Communication is not just speaking up. It's also listening, very important. So you got to listen to other person, not interrupt them, understand them, whether it is even a public talk or if it is a written communication, you got to understand what is there in the writing, right? So listen and interpret, understand what is happening, and then revert back or talk to them. That's how communication goes. Okay, these are the 3 key points of communication. And communication proper communication, effective communication is important irrespective of what language that you're using, right? It can be Malayalam, it can be Tamil, it can be anything. Again, when I told to my friends that I'm going to talk about effective communication, they were asking me, okay, you're going to talk about how to speak effectively in English. No, not the case. Let it be any language, let it be any conversation, even a casual conversation that you have with your mom. It's got to be effective, right? What you have in your mind, you have to put it across effectively. So that is effective communication. Okay. Now, if we look at evolution and biology, we can see that communication is what made humans humans. So what I mean by that is we both, us and chimpanzees, humans and chimpanzees, we evolved from a common ancestors, chilkas as we call them. And after so much years of evolution, chimpanzees have stayed the way that they are, but we have formed a complex society. Why is that? That's because we are able to communicate. We are able to share information. We are able to share ideas, and we are able to work in a coordination, right? So if you look at our brain, there is a separate area called Broca's area, which is used for language synthesis and communication. So evolutionarily, communication is so much important. And if you look at the complex society, it has been possible because we are able to communicate. Now, communication obviously makes a difference. How it makes a difference in your life? Obviously, when you complete your BTech and you move ahead in your life, you're going to face interviews. Probably you're fetching a job. The job opportunities, they will definitely expect you to communicate well. If you're not going for a job, if you're starting a business, you want to sell things. Obviously, it's going to make a difference. If you can communicate effectively, you'll be able to sell better, or you will be able to run your business better. It makes a difference there. And it obviously makes an impression on the other person, right? Whether it is first impression, even if it is in your relationship, or when you're building friends, making friends, nobody likes a person who is like going on talking, not listening to others. So effective communication definitely makes a difference in your life. And the more you move ahead in your life, the more above you reach, the bigger the difference is. Here's an example that I want to show you. The two people that I'm going to show you. The first one on the left, you might know him, is Bill Gates. And what he's holding is a tablet PC, as it was called. And this introduction was done in 2000, the year 2000, okay? And the device that he's holding on to, that is a tablet PC, which is very similar to the tablet that we are using, and it was way ahead of its time. It had all the capabilities that a Microsoft Windows operating system has, and it came at a very big price, but it was a very useful machine. But we know that it was not a success, right? But 10 years later, this guy on the right, Steve Jobs, he came ahead and he introduced the iPad. And as we know it, it's one of the most popular tablets, and more than 1 billion units have been sold. There are a lot of things that has contributed to this difference, but I would say one of the biggest factors that has contributed to the growth of iPad to such a successful machine is the fact that how he presented it. On one side, you see Bill Gates coming to the States telling that this device has this much RAM, this much storage capability, this much power, it can run this much computations. On the other hand, Steve Jobs was talking about the experience you're going to get, how as a consumer you're going to feel, and so on and so forth. So basically, that's the difference. When you understand the audience and when you speak from the perspective of the audience, you are able to make a difference. And the higher up you are, the bigger the difference an effective communication can bring. So anatomically speaking, and in society also, we can see the effective communication makes a big impact. But when we are asked to speak, at the end of the day, we are like this. We tell, oh, what I'm going to do. We are excited. We are anxious. At times, we are scared. We are always like not looking forward to speak up or to communicate effectively. In this session, we will try to get rid of a few bad habits that we'll have going ahead. So, what are the most common ways of communication? Obviously, we know that speaking up is one way of communication. Like I've told, it can be a casual conversation that you have one-on-one with your friends, or it can be a conversation where there is an audience, there are a lot of people listening to you. And the second one is obviously writing, includes your texts, letters that you put, emails that you receive, you respond, all those things. So these are the two major areas where we are going to focus. And like I've told earlier, before we go ahead and tell about these things, it's important to understand that we need to listen. Like I've told earlier, listening is one of the most important aspect of communication. And it's not just casual listening. It's about understanding the other person, paying attention, and focusing on what the other person says. Or maybe if you're reading a text, it's paying attention to that text. So attention to details, that's very important. Even small things can make a big difference. So I'll quickly quote an example. So there was a king who was sending a message to a convict murderer, and this was like 200 years back, let's say. So he had no other method but to write that message in a letter and pass it on through messengers. So what he did was he wrote that kill him, comma, save him not. He wrote that. Okay. So kill him not and save him. That was what he wrote. So he after kill him he put a comma and not save him. That's what he written. Now actually what the king meant was he meant kill him not, comma, save him. So just because a comma had been misplaced, the convict got murdered. Okay, so that's the importance of details. Okay, when it comes to written communication or when it comes to speaking effectively, small details can make a big difference. So you have to focus on what the other person is saying. Let's have an activity here. Like I told earlier, it's not fruitful to keep on talking. So I'm going to give you an activity to try it on out on your own. What I want to do is I'm going to show you a sentence next on the screen, and I want you to count the number of F's that you see, the letter F in that sentence coming up. And I'll probably give you around 15 to 20 seconds to look at that. And within that, you have to count the number of F's and write it in the chat box. Okay, so your time starts now. Yeah, the letter F. Count the number of letter F. All right, that's time up. Okay. Anybody more? How many F's that you see? I see 4. I see 6. I see 6. A few people who are saying 3. I see 10. Okay, that's interesting. All right. Okay. Now I'll go back to the previous screen. Okay. I'll show you the sentence again, and this time I'll guide you on what you have missed. Okay. When you count the number of F's, there is one 2-letter word that you have missed. That is off. Everybody, most of the people have missed off, and that's why people get 4, 3, and all. Okay. Now, if you count the number of F's, there is a F in finished. There is an F in file 2. There is an F in off. The result off. Okay, that's 3. Then years off. That's number 4. Scientific F5, and then in the last line, experience off. That's number 6. So there are 6 F. But then we're all smart people, right? So the answer is 6. But even though we are smart people, we are graduates, we have been like training and like we've been having so much experience in our life, like learning and communicating. But still, we were not able to like capture those 6 F's in this sentence. A lot of people have done that. Congratulations to whoever has written 6. That's the right answer. But for the others, I'm saying we miss on small details, and it's nothing to be ashamed of. It's not that it's not a big deal to miss out on such details. But what I want to do for you guys going ahead is that you have to pay attention to details. So it's just that we miss out on certain things, and this happens quite a lot. You might have heard seen sentences and memes where there are 2 letters, 2 words, THE, and then our brain tends to like miss out on the second D because that's how it is wired. So I want you to pay attention when you're reading something. Pay attention to every word and be careful about what you're reading, and that care can bring a lot of difference. Okay, let's move ahead. So that's about listening and why I'm saying this is like listening becomes important. It's a very important part of communication. And a couple of things that to remember before we go ahead is that you should never interrupt the other person when the other person is talking. I'm not saying you should never, but unless there is an absolute necessity, you shouldn't be interrupting the other person. Let the other person complete, because nobody likes being interrupted, right? Nobody likes that feeling. So never interrupt the other person. Let the other person talk and focus on what they are talking. And when it is reading, pay attention to each and every single word that you're reading. All right, let's move on to speaking. Okay, there are two kinds of speaking that is generally done. One is prepared speech, which is what I'm doing right now. Preparing a slide, I'm coming in front of you. I already know what I'm talking about. I'll be talking about that. Okay, that's prepared speeches. That's tough. But then what is even more tougher is spontaneous speeches. Spontaneous speeches examples can be your friend saying, all right, you know that person better. Can you please introduce him? Or maybe your boss asking you a question. All right, you have done this. Why? Those kind of speeches, it can be that. Or you're coming up on a stage, some kind of elocution you're doing, some kind of public speech, or it can be interviews. Those kind of speeches are spontaneous speeches. So we look at both, but we have to understand that spontaneous speeches are much more common. Like I've told, it can be introduction. People might ask you to introduce the other person. Then it can be feedback. You're checking out of a hotel and the hotel management is asking you to give a feedback to them. Again, spontaneous. Surprise toast. People might ask you, you answer this. It's a surprise for you. You gotta spontaneously come up with an answer. Q&A sessions. We're gonna do that today. Towards the end of this session, I'm gonna give you 5-10 minutes to ask the questions that you have to me. So those kind of sessions, they are also spontaneous. I never know what you're gonna ask me, right? So these are all spontaneous speaking. All right. So today's agenda, we look at a couple of things. First thing is that when we are asked to speak, whether it is spontaneous or prepared speech, the first thing that we endure, or first thing that we experience, is anxiety, obviously, and at times fear. Okay, it's literally fear. And we'll also we'll see how we can manage that. You can never eliminate anxiety, but we'll see how to manage that. And we'll look at a few rules that you can follow to give a better speech. Okay, first we'll look at anxiety management. Okay, 85% of people are anxious about public speeches. And yeah, if we look at the rest of the 15%, they're just lying. Because in my opinion, 100% of the people, everybody, including you and me, are a bit anxious when it comes to public speaking. So what can we do? You can never eliminate anxiety. Please keep that in mind. You are a human being. Your brain is designed that way. You can never eliminate anxiety. Don't expect that, okay, after the session is done, I'm not going to be anxious anymore. That doesn't happen. So what you can instead do is you can acknowledge your anxiety. So what I mean by that is the fear that comes on top of your mind, the anxiousness that comes on top of mind, you have to understand that it is natural. Everybody will have it, and this is a part of the game. Okay. Once you acknowledge that, once again, it's not going to be eliminated, but you can keep it under control. Okay. You are not on top of that. You're not thinking about, oh, my heart is beating, what I'm going to do now. No, it will beat. It's part of the game. Acknowledge that. Move ahead to the next task. Okay. Now, next thing. It is not a performance when it comes to talking. So what I mean by that is, let's say if you're going to sing a song on a stage. Okay. If you sing the song wrong, then people are going to catch you. But when it comes to public speaking or spontaneous speaking or even prepared speeches, there is no right or wrong way always, right? Because even the speech that I am giving right now, I might have prepared this in entirely a different way, okay? But I might be presenting it in altogether a different way. Nobody is going to know, right? So similarly, when it comes to you as a speaker, you have to always understand that there is no right or wrong way. Also, you can reframe it as a conversation. Let's say this is applicable when you're talking to a large number of group of people. When you're doing that, you just think that, all right, I have to put my ideas across. It doesn't matter if it is one person, my friend, or 1,000 people that are listening to me. It doesn't matter. Okay? reframe it as a conversation and try. The only focus should be on putting across your ideas. Okay, next one. Be in the present. Very, very important. There are a couple of things that you can do to be in the present. What I mean by that is, first of all, you have to warm up your voice. You can use certain tongue twisters like what is written on the screen right now. And you have to think that this moment, I have to focus on the present. I don't have to like zoom around in the past, what I've done or whatever, the previous issues or whatever. The focus has to be on that issue that you're talking about. Okay. Now let's come to some of the rules that you can follow to deliver a speech effectively. Okay. First one, get out of your own way. Don't stack upon things. Like I've told earlier, you don't have to think about yesterday's thing when you're talking in the present, right? You just have to focus on the issue or the matter that you are talking about. Don't stack up too many things on mind, or that's going to hinder your speech. Okay, that's very important. Next, see it as an opportunity. Okay, so what I mean by that is, like the movie Three Idiots, you might have seen it. He says that you have to see whatever questions that are being asked as an opportunity to learn. Similarly, always a speech, a spontaneous speaking session that you get should be an opportunity for you. It's not a threat. When your boss suddenly says that, all right, you know this person, can you introduce him to the other person? You're not going to be like, oh, I'm going to talk now, I'm scared. You shouldn't be that way. You should see it as an opportunity where you can talk, you can prove your excellence to the other person. And seeing it that way creates a lot of positivity, which will definitely reflect in your speech. Okay. Next one, use a structure. Extremely important. So what I mean by that is, see, when I'm going through a topic, I shouldn't be going through it in a random way. Like you can, let's say I have n number of points. I should stack it up in such a way that it makes sense. Like for example, let's say I have a phone number. What we do, we split it into like first three numbers, then three numbers, then four numbers, right? That way we'll be able to memorize it. And research has shown that if we use a structure while we are talking, it is much more interpretable, much more understandable, even up to 40% more understandable. Okay. So one such example would be problem, solution, benefit structure. So what I mean by that, let's say you are given an opportunity to talk. First, you should acknowledge, or first you should talk about what is the problem that you are talking about. Like let's say today I was talking about effective communication. So I was telling you, okay, I'm going to talk about effective communication. And then I structured it in such a way that, all right, first I'm going to talk about why effective communication. Can everybody go on mute? Yeah, thank you. So first I had structured it in such a way that I was talking about why effective communication is important, what is the impact that it has, and then how you can communicate effectively. Then I will be going to what are the benefits. Okay. Similarly, you have to acknowledge the problem, or you have to talk about the problem. Then you have to talk about what is the solution that you are talking about, or you are coming up with, or you are proposing, and then the benefits of the solution. Certain times you won't have such kind of scenario, and in those scenarios, what you can do is follow a structure of what, so what, and now what. So let's say you have some social issue topic that you're talking about. What you have to do is you have to talk about what the social issue is, why, in overall, so what is happening, or what is important when you talk about that particular social issue, or if you're proposing something, what is that you're proposing. And then once that proposal is done, once that proposal is, let's say, implemented, now what happens? That structure you can follow. It's not necessary that you should stick on to this particular structure. I have told a couple of structures that are very effective in most number of cases, but always keeping a structure in mind. There are two benefits for that. First of all, it will effectively put across the message to the other person. And secondly, it is also going to clear up your mind regarding what all points you want to talk. If you structure it in such a way, it will help you in your flow, and as well as include all the important points that you want to talk about. All right, let's go to an activity. Quickly look around you. If you are sitting on a table, get a pen, or if your pen is lying around, take that pen. I give you 2 minutes, and you have to, in the chat box, or you can unmute yourself, and you have to sell me that pen. Okay, 2 minutes starts now. Always remember to follow the structure. Like I've told, you have to get your anxiety under control. See this as an opportunity rather than a threat. When I'm asking you, okay, you have to talk or you have to sell a pen, you have to always think it as an opportunity you got to respond, and then use a structure to deliver your message. 2 or 3 sentences is more than enough. Just think about 2 or 3 sentences about that pen, and you have to sell that pen basically. Okay. Right, 1 minute is over. You have 1 more minute. 2 to 3 sentences is more than enough. All right. Can everybody go on mute? Yeah. So your 2 minutes is over. Can you please post your response in the chat box, or if anybody can, just unmute and tell me a couple of sentences regarding the pen that you have that you want to sell me. Any responses? All right, you can keep your responses posted. We'll move ahead with the session. So one more thing that I need to tell you at this point of time is to keep, when you have a conversation with anybody, have the S and attitude over the no but attitude. This is very important. Okay, I just got a response from Ashwin Ram. So he's asking, hey, what do you do if you need to put a sign on paper? Yeah, that is it. You need a pen. Take it now. And one more thing, this is the pen which is used by Barack Obama too. And he gave it, I gave it to him for 100 rupees. He's a former president. That's good. That's a pretty good, pretty witty response, Ashwin. So it's as simple as that. So whenever you see things around you, there's one pretty good activity that you can do to come up with like interesting, spontaneous, or improve your spontaneous speech abilities, right? Look around things when you're waiting in a queue, or when you're sitting on a chair and doing something or doing nothing. At those times, what you can do is you can look around, you can look at the objects that are around you, and try to frame a couple of sentences on that particular object. Let's say if I'm talking about this particular bottle, what can I tell? I can tell that this bottle is red, it has water in it, it has around like 1 liter of water, it weighs this much, it has a red cap, you can open and drink water, you can close it, it's very handy, you can carry it around. As simple as that. Now it's I've made like around 5-6 sentences, right? So similarly, you look around for things and try to make 4 or 5 sentences on that particular object. This will definitely improve your cognitive abilities. And when you face a situation like an interview where you need to spontaneously talk about something, any question that the interviewer asks, at that point of time, if you have such an experience, you will be able to quickly come up with points. And this will also greatly help in group discussions and all, where you can contribute your points without much thought process behind it. Everybody, please go on mute. Yeah, so we'll move ahead with the session. Now, next we'll come to writing. We have been talking about spontaneous speaking and prepared speeches. Make sure to remember those points. I'll probably send across this deck so you can keep those points in mind. And please make sure to do the activity that I've mentioned, which is like seeing the objects around you and trying to come up with a few sentences on your own to improve your cognitive abilities on speaking. Let's go on to writing. So writing includes obviously letters, emails, and everything. And since we are mostly into the digital world, we'll talk more about digital writing. So there are four key things that you need to look at for writing better. First one is obviously putting the reader first. You have to, like I've told earlier, when Steve Jobs was talking, he was having the perspective of a potential consumer, potential user, right? And in case of Bill Gates, he was talking from the company's perspective. So instead, what you want to do is to be or emulate what Steve Jobs has done, where he puts the audience first, right? That's what you want to do. You want to put the reader first, then keep it as simple as possible. You're not writing a poem, you're not writing an essay to impress anybody. Keep it as simple as possible, as effective as possible. This is just a communication where you want to like get your thought process across to the other person. Then use active voice. I'll explain that more in the coming slides. And once you have written that, read it again and format. I'll tell you the importance of that. Let's first look at putting a reader first. All right, first thing that you need to do is to write for a better understanding, right? You don't have to, like I've told earlier, it's not a poem or it's not an essay where you are trying to show your skills of writing, right? That's not the case. You want to put across your thoughts, you keep it as simple as possible. Use simple words, no jargons, keep the language as simple as possible, okay? Now, use words that the reader can picture. Like let's say if I'm talking about something that you cannot imagine, there is no point, no perspective for the user or for the reader to understand what you are talking about. So use words or use phrases that the reader can imagine and picture. Right? That's very important. Now, also think about what is there when you are writing. What is there in it for you as well as him, the reader as well as yourself. Like let's say you're writing a letter to get into a college. You have to be concise to that point so that at the end of the writing, you have to make sure that you're not missing out on the purpose that you're writing. Okay. Now let's move on to how we can keep it simple. I'll quickly give you a sample sentence. You have to tell me how this sentence can be written in a simpler phrase. Again, 30 seconds for this activity. Just read this sentence and in your chat box, write a simpler version of this sentence. Your time starts now. All right. Anybody want to unmute and tell how this can be expressed in a simpler term, in a simpler sentence? Anybody want to write that in the chat? Okay. I'll just show you a simpler version of this particular sentence. So here they talk about like having a previous conversation, and they're telling that they are enclosing a 5,000 rupees balance in their account. It's as simple as that. A simpler version of this sentence would be, as discussed, here is the rupees 5,000 in my account. Okay, rather than saying I'm enclosing remittance and then in due balance due in my account and so on and so forth, you can keep it as simple as possible. You can say that here is the money and that's there in the account. Okay, so rather than using complex phrases, put it in simpler words so that the reader gets the full picture. At the same time, like I've told, don't miss out on the purpose. You have to include everything that you want to say, but keep it in a simpler sentence. Once again, you're not doing an essay or you're not writing something to impress somebody. You're actually writing to put across the message. Okay, let's move ahead. We have to keep next thing to keep in mind is to keep things simple, right? All right, how we can keep it simple? I want to avoid phrases as much as possible, prepositional phrases. Like, let's say, due to the fact that I don't want to use that, I can use because, right? And in the event that, it's not actually because, it's if here, okay? Rather than using in the event that, you can use if. It's a much better, simpler sentence. So prepositional phrases, it might make your sentence look much better, but then they have difficulty in reading, right? People have difficulty in reading prepositions. So you want to keep it simple. Use simple phrases rather than prepositions. Also, try to avoid jargons. Like, let's say if I say GECBH, you might know what GECBH is, but then when I say it to a random person, they might or might not understand what GECBH is. By the way, GECBH is Government Engineering College Barton Hill. So yeah, so that acronyms and jargons that you're using, like let's say you're a computer science engineer, you're saying that this computer has this much RAM, this much storage, this much gigahertz of speed, and so on and so forth. The normal person might not understand what you're saying, right? Rather than that, you can say that, okay, my computer is faster, my computer has more memory, as simple as that. Okay, so try to avoid jargons, try to avoid acronyms as much as possible, unless you are absolutely sure that the reader is understanding that jargon, or the reader is understanding those acronyms. Okay, now use active voice. How can we use active voice? Once again, here's another sentence on screen, and this is in passive voice. Can somebody translate this to active voice? I'll give you 15 seconds once again. You can use the chat, you can unmute yourself and tell me. Anybody want to take a try? Yeah, Anjali, that's a good response. So it's as simple as new company sells insurance. Even I wouldn't want a form there, right? Because can everyone go on mute? Yeah. So even I don't want to say that it's a formed company. It's very obvious that a company new is formed, right? So I'll keep it as simple as the new company sells insurance rather than it is being sold by the company. It's a passive voice where you replace that with an active voice. So keep your sentences in active voice, especially when you're using it to just express your ideas. All right, let's move ahead. We'll finally go to read it again and formatting. How we can format it better. If sentences are altered, if you're writing something and in between you want to add more points to that sentence, you can always do that, but make sure that if you're doing that, you read the sentences twice before you send it across. Let it be a message, or let it be an email, or let it be a written whatever document that you're preparing. If sentences are altered in between, always make sure that you check them twice by reading it at the end of the day before sending it. Okay, now use bullet points wherever possible. It's very important. Like even in this presentation, if you see, most of my pointers are in bullet points. Why? Because it's crisp, it's clear, you can go through it in a very short amount of time, right? And when it is bullet points, you can get the key information as quickly as possible. So wherever possible, try to avoid paragraphs, try to go for bullet points. And then spacing and formatting, extremely important. Try to space your sentences properly, try to format them. If you want to use bold letters, try to use bold letters in appropriate places. Always remember, if you're writing an email or if you're doing any kind of written communication, if you use bold or capital letters, it is considered as shouting. Okay, it's very important to use them in the appropriate places. If you want to highlight something, you can use colors to highlight that. But if you use bold or capitalized letters, it is considered as shouting. So be very aware of where you're using bold letters or capital letters. All right, let's go to some email etiquettes. When you go ahead to an organization, let's say you're running a business or you're getting a job, emails are going to be the primary communication method. Like the person might be sitting next to me, but then the official communication, everything happens through emails because we need to keep a record of everything. Okay, so when you're in an organization, whether it is a job or you're running it on your own, you're going to write a lot of emails. And what are some of the etiquettes? That is what we're going to discuss now. Once again, good emails can get you places. That is also important. Why I'm saying this? Let it be a job opportunity. Let it be selling something. Let it be asking to get into some place or to attend a function. Whatever, you're going to shoot mails, right? And if the mail is shitty, which I'm going to show later, if it is a bad, you're not going to get the expected response for that particular mail. Okay, so you have to make sure that your mails are good. How you can make sure that? Let's see. First of all, proper subject line. What is the subject line? I'll quickly pull up the Outlook template that I have. You always have a subject line on top. This is where you need to write. Let's say I'm seeking a job opportunity. I'll write that this is application for XYZ job in your org. Something like this, where you put across the whole content of the message or whole content of the mail in a single line. It should be very crisp and clear for the reader that this is what you're trying to achieve through that mail. Okay, that is the subject line. So you have to put it as catchy as possible. It should be in such a way that the reader would want to read that mail rather than putting it like a huge as big subject line. You can keep it crisp, but in such a way that you convey the idea of the message. Okay, then greeting. You have to start the message. Whenever you're starting the email, you have to say hi sir or hi whatever name you want to say, or in some places you can use dear. Okay, dear sir or dear whatever name. You can use that, but make sure that if you're using dear, you are using it in the appropriate places where you know the person and you are a friend with that person probably. Okay, now next, introduction. If it is necessary, introduce about yourself, introduce about what you're going to talk. Requests, if there are requests in that mail, if you're trying to get a job opportunity, mention that properly in an appropriate language. Like I've told, you don't have to bold or you don't have to keep it in capital letters if you're making a request especially. Okay, now closing remarks. Say that you're thankful for whatever mails that you're putting in. If it is a job opportunity, say that you're thankful for considering your application and so on and so forth. And finally, don't forget to put your signature. That is extremely important. I've seen a lot of people making this mistake. At the closing place, you have to say thank you and then say your name, whatever your name is, and then if needed, your phone number or your email ID, whatever reveals your identity. Now you can automate this. You can go in Outlook. There is in insert, there is a signature template that you can make. So in signatures, you can make your signature, or you can write it how I have done now. Okay. Now, what else we need to remember while putting mail? Use written language. Very important. It's not like how we are talking. It's not going to be a speaking language that you have to write. You have to write written language, which puts across the message in a crisp manner. Now, assume that you are talking, whatever you are talking, it's going to be public. You go to the other person who is receiving it. Let's say you're putting a job application. Let's say you're trying to sell a product. Whenever you're doing that, make sure that whatever you're writing is going to be for the public. So reveal only the information which are relevant to the public, unless you're absolutely sure that you're putting the message to the right person. So for example, like I've told now, if you are not comfortable about revealing your phone number, you don't have to reveal that. You can just put your email and then close your signature like that. Okay, so be very sensitive about the information that you are putting in your mails. Okay, read your mail twice before sending it across. I have talked about reading and proofreading earlier also. When it comes to mail, it is extremely important because, like I've told, I might be writing something like here, something I'll be writing. I'll be altering that sentence, and then it will be altogether conveying a different meaning, right? Like I've told earlier, a simple comma can make a big difference. So make sure that you're reading at least 2 times before putting a mail. At least 2 times, make sure to go through that mail and make sure that you are having all the content that you are looking after too. Now, spell check and formatting. Once you finish the mail that you're looking at, you will have spell check options. You can right click and like look at the spell check options, and grammatically you have to make sure that your mails are correct. Okay. And finally, check for attachment. Like in a lot of places, especially when you are like using for a job opportunity and all, you'll write, please find my resume attached, right? And then if you forget to attach, it will look very bad, right? So forget to attach your CV or resume with this name, and if you put it blank, it'll look very odd. Okay, so make sure that you check for the attachments. Now, if you receive an unclear mail or unclear response, what do you have to do? You have to give the benefit to the reader. Make sure that you are trying to read it from their perspective. Okay. If you're still not understanding, try to Google up things. If they are having acronyms like the bad things that I have told earlier, if that is there, try to Google up, try to like understand what they are trying to tell. If you're still not sure, try to ask for a clarification in a very polite manner. Okay. And that language is very important. Okay. And finally, if you're still not convinced or satisfied, you can try for a in-person discussion. Say that I'm not understanding, maybe I should meet you in person to discuss. Probably that's not applicable in the current situation of the pandemic, but then this is the general rule that you can follow. Okay, I'll show you an example of a good mail and a bad mail. The one on the left is a bad mail. You can see the subject, it's none, like there is no subject. A lot of grammatical mistakes, spelling mistakes. I have doesn't have an apostrophe. Homework is a spelling mistake, blah blah blah. This mail is a mess. Okay, and the signature is also not proper. It's not giving a salutation. Nothing is there. On the right, it's a better template where I'm putting a proper subject. I'm telling that, okay, this is a technical reporting and it's a question that I'm presenting. And then I'm giving a salutation, greeting, saying that, dear, whoever that person is. And then I'm saying that I am so-and-so. And then I would like to like report this incident. And then I'm placing a request in a very polite manner. Then I'm having closing remark where I'm saying that I thank you for the help that you're doing me. And then I'm having a signature. Closing remarks, once again, I'll put sincerely, whatever you want to add as a closing remark, and then signature. The signature can once again be automated if you want in using Outlook or other programs that you're using, or it can be written like how you are writing. And make sure that when you're writing this, you check these 6 pointers. Okay, once again, I'm showing that to you on screen. These 6 pointers are very important. Proper subject line, greeting, introduction, the request that you're making, make it in a polite manner, closing remarks, and signature. Extremely important. And even if you see this mail, like let's say if you are receiving these 2 mails, the first one you will see it's very unclear, it's not even pleasing to look at. On the other hand, the second mail, it's very formatted, it's proper, you can look at it, and by looking at it itself, you can like grab what he's trying to say. So let's say you are a HR in a company and you are getting 2 such mails for a job application. Which one will you prefer? Obviously, you will prefer the second mail, and obviously you will go with the second person, right? That's where the difference comes. Okay. Let it be a job opportunity. Let it be like you're putting your potential client. You're trying to sell a product to a potential client. You want to put them, put an email to them. What do? If you type a properly formatted email along with maybe an attachment where it shows a picture of that product or something like that, or a poster or something like that, it'll look very, very neat. And there are like very high chances that that person who's reading that mail is going to consider your application or your product request more than any other person's product request. And this becomes important even if you work in an organization also, because you will be communicating with your higher officials, your colleagues, maybe your clients. Everybody is going to like watch your language or watch your formatting and email etiquettes. So, and even people might judge you based on that. That happens. Unfortunately, that happens. Okay. So keeping a good email template is extremely important. All right. So with that, I come to the end of my presentation. Once again, I'll quickly give a recap. We talked about speeches. And first of all, we talked about listening. Listening is an important part of communication. Then we talked about speaking. In speaking, we talked about spontaneous speaking as well as prepared speeches. A few pointers that I've told about spontaneous speeches, I'll probably send this deck across to you. You can look at that. Those are important. You have to clear up your mind, warm up your voice, and move out of your way. Basically, focus on that particular issue, and most important of all, use a proper structure when you're trying to deliver a message. This can be even to your friend when you're having a conversation. You have to use a structure. Then we talked about written communication. In writing, we discussed a few pointers. Once again, I'll send you the deck. And we looked at emails, which is probably the most relevant and the most frequently used communication methods in any organization. Okay, I'll be glad to take any questions that you have. Yeah, and Robin, I'll definitely share my social media handles in the chat box itself. Any other questions that you guys have? We have 4 minutes, I think. If you have questions, I'll be glad to take them. Any questions? Anything you can ask? Anything regarding communication? Any feedback that you have for me? Was the session useful? Was it worth your time? Yeah, so Anirudh has asked how important is maintaining eye contact with any presentation or speech. It's extremely important. See, as a part of evolution also, it's extremely important to keep eye contact with whoever you're talking to, because that grabs the attention. Okay, one of the most important things that you want to do while doing any public speech or any conversation, you have to make sure that you grab the attention of whoever you're talking to, right? Let it be a casual conversation. Let it be like what I'm doing, an official presentation before anyone. So I have to keep maintaining eye contact, and that keeps giving that attention back, right? People will keep paying attention to you. Like even now, I'm always like making eye contact with the camera. I'm not saying that I should stare like this. It's not that. Making eye contact is different. Making eye contact should be like, it should be intermittent. What I mean by that is, you have to make eye contact with multiple people, see people, acknowledge them, acknowledge their presence, and try to put across what you're trying to tell. And also, one more thing that is extremely important is your body language while you're presenting. You can use your hands to present, like how I'm doing now. You can use your face, tilt your face. You can smile. Also, you can include jokes, but make sure that those jokes are effective and not discriminatory. You know, mean jokes, you don't want to use them, right? You have to use very witty jokes, and often the best jokes are like self-discriminatory. If you can like do it on your own, take it on your own, that's the best jokes that you can include. What would be your answer to selling the pen? Probably I would say that the pen that I have is really good at writing. I initially like tell you the experience that you will get. I'll tell you that this is a ballpoint pen, and the advantage of a ballpoint pen is that it gives you this much amount of life, and this is the color of the pen. Those whoever have used that pen have got these advantages. Maybe like they've been able to like complete essays in like 10 minutes, and they've been like it's been effective in putting across whatever they were thinking to write without any errors in happening, or any running out of ink or something like that didn't happen, and so on and so forth. Couple of sentences, that should be enough. Yeah, that's how I would go about it. Yeah, so I will just give my social media handles in the chat box. You can contact me if you have any doubts that you have going ahead. I wish you all the best of luck going ahead. Yeah, so if you have any questions, try to reach out me anytime, especially through mails. That is preferable. But even if you want other social media handles, that will also be cool with me. So thank you so much for this opportunity, guys. It's been great to present to you all, and hope to see you around. Thank you. And over to you, coordinators.
Thank you, sir, for the session. It was very informative, and you also kept it interesting the whole time. And for all the participants, a feedback form will be available in the chat right now. Please do fill it. And thanks again, sir, for the session.
Thank you. Have a nice day. Have a nice weekend.